Hello, everybody, and welcome to another draft analysis. We're going into the season 2 of the Nimbasa City League. The league started by my good friend Ian, and yeah, there's a bunch of great coaches that are coming back in this league. We've got Ian himself, me, uh, Austin, Cade, Matt, um, Dom, and like a bunch of good coaches that are returning from the first season, and then there's uh, a few, uh, a few new coaches, some fresh blood coming in, which is pretty cool. Um, Now, there is a Nimbasa City League YouTube channel as well, which I'll link in the description. Um, if you'd like to check that out for like some analysis of all the drafts that took place, things like coach interviews and other series that'll be going on over the course of the season. Um, but yeah, we'll just um, head into my own draft now, and we'll go over what I picked up and how I think they will work in the team. Um, I was the last pick of the draft, which means I get the wheel at the end, but that also means there's long turns in between my picks. Um, but I think the last wheel was good for me for this draft because I was completely unsure what I wanted to take, and just being able to see what's left at the end of each round um, really helped me like decide on the direction I wanted to take this draft. Basically, um, my first pick when it got to me at 12th pick, right at the end here, was something that like I've been wanting to use for a little while. I've just never really been able to make it fit. I don't really like drafting many fire types outside of Salazzle, um, but this is one that does have a lot of versatility, a lot of options, and a lot of power behind it, and that is the Inferno. So this is going to be my first round pick. Um, like the good thing about Inferno, but it's got a lot of versatility. It's got like the special attack and the attack, um, and a decent speed as well. Like it can run special, it can run physical, and it's got setup on both sides as well with things like nasty plot or hone claws and stuff like that. So it's like just a very cool, very reliable Mon to be able to bring. It does also get the options like stealth rocking if I don't want to use someone else on my team. Um, but yeah, definitely a great addition to this team. Some pretty cool abilities as well with the Blaze getting things like Flare Bit Blitz, having some higher attack when it gets lower health and stuff like that, and then Iron Fist, all those punching moves getting a bit of a boost there. Um, yeah, it's just a great, speedy, offensive threat, and it's definitely hard to prep around, like hard to prep for. Um, Speaking of speedy threats, my next pick was also in that category. Not a mixed attacker by any means, but still very threatening, and that's the Katana as my first free pick here to start off this draft. But yeah, so it's not very strong defensively. Some people would say it's got paper thin defenses. um, Special defense, especially, anything that breathes a fire move in its direction is like going to annihilate it because it's grass and steel there, which is starting on my steel dragon fairy core and continuing with my fire grass water core there. But it has an insane attack stat, 181, and then speed 109, 1 point faster than the Inferno from just before, I believe. Um, but like, and then having the beast boost ability, being able to boost that speed or that attack depending on what it needs for the matchup is very cool. And then its defensive stat is actually pretty decent as well. So, like, it can be used to tank a hit on the physical side if needed be. Not that you would ever really run this as a defensive variant, but like it could allow it to tank a hit to get like a sword stance up or something like that. I believe it gets sword stance. It would be pretty crazy for it not to be honest. But yeah, that's pretty much Katana. My next pick after it came all the way back to me, um, like another 20-ish picks or whatever, uh, was a bit more defensively orientated, and that was Kyurem. Okay, my next two picks are a bit bulkier. This isn't the defensively orientated one that I was thinking of, but uh, I took them at the same time. I can't remember the exact order I took them in, but Kyurem, 125 HP, 90 defense, 90 special defense. While it's not really like used as a defensive mon because of that 130 attack, 130 special attack, it has enough bulk that it can tank a hit or two. And if you do go like HP invested, it does get things like Roost and stuff like that that can help it sit around for longer, which is pretty awesome. A really good breaker that will help my Katana and Infernape like sweep basically. This will be able to chunk some walls, and then Katana or Infernape can come in and clean things up, which is pretty cool. And 95 speed is a pretty decent speed tiering as well. Um, Hitting the same speed tier as like Zygarde 50%. So like a Scarf Kyurem can still speed tie with like a Dragon Dance Zygarde, which is cool, and then like Oko it back with an Ice Beam or something like that. Like I think a standard Zygarde with the Archie Berry is still going to get Oko'd by. It still has a decent chance of being Oko'd by an Ice Beam from a Kyurem, which is pretty crazy. And it's got that pressure ability, so it can kind of threaten walls that want to try and just like sit in front of it and stall it out. Can't do that as easily when this thing is on your team, that's for sure. And that goes that helps it be an even better breaker as well. So that's pretty cool to have. And now my next pick was a more defensively orientated pick here on this wheel, and that is Rotem Wash. So this gives me my Grass, Fire, Water Core complete. And it gives me like a electric type as well, which is very neat. And the levitate really helps there as well. So it avoids that ground weakness, though you do have to watch out for the mold breaker mons and stuff like that. But yeah, outside of that ground type, it is only weak to grass type, and at least that's what I believe so. And that is really good. So that means there's not a lot that's going to be hitting this thing super effectively, and with, I mean, the HP stat's not insane, but compared with the defense and special defense stat, it can get very bulky, and it can get very hard to deal with. But it's also got a decent enough special attack that it can still put on some offensive pressure if you want to run it as a more offensive set. So it can be used as a Scarfer, it can be used as a Specs Mon, it can be used defensively. So a lot of variables here. And while both Katana and Rotem Wash on my team at the moment both learn Defog, Rotem Wash out of the two is definitely the one that will carry it more often, almost guaranteed right there. Katana with defog is not the most common thing, and it's not something that I mean I'm sure that I might run it at some point, but Rotom Wash is the one more likely to bring it more often. But anyway, yeah, that was that wheel. We waited another bunch of picks, and we come back to me, and I think it's time to pick up my mega. Something that Ian sniped from me this time, last season of the NCL, and that um, I get a chance to use this time because I took it right back. He was looking at it again, but he wasn't going to take it this early, so um, so me sniping it from him wasn't a big deal because he had plenty of other options that he was looking at still as well. But sorry, Ian, it's my turn to use it this time, and that is Mega Beedrill. 150 attack, 145 speed. That's amazing. And the fact that I picked it up in tier two to give me some points back to spend later in my draft is pretty dang good as well. Um, Obviously, Mega Beedrill is not bulky. It dies pretty easily to fire, to rock, even a ground hit. Even though it's only neutrally effective, it's still going to do a ton of damage to this thing. Um, Psychic move, like all of those things are going to destroy it if it doesn't manage to outspeed. But like the stab boosted and then adaptability boosted U-turn is amazing. That gives me a solid Volt turn core between the Inferno, Rotem Wash, and Mega Beedrill, which is always nice to have that mobility and that momentum. Um, and it like gets a decent amount of coverage moves as well. Um, Stab Poison Jab is awesome to have as well. And then it gets things like Drill Run, which lets it cover one of its weaknesses and hit something that it wouldn't be able to hit normally, like as in the Steel types. So and the Rock types as well. So like being able to cover its weaknesses like that is pretty cool. Though it doesn't get that adaptability boost, it can still hit pretty hard, especially if you manage to get like a Fell Stinger off and get that +3. Um, with this Mega Beedrill, I decided to finish off my Dragon Steel Fairy core and get a nice Psychic type to go with my Psychic Fighting Dark core that is kind of like a tertiary core. Um, I feel like it's still a fairly important core to try and pick up, but it's not something that you really need to focus on. Um, but that is my Gardevoir that I picked up. Um, Decently bulky on the specially defensive side and averagely bulky on the defensive side. You're not really going to want this to take physical hits, but it can soak up some specially offensive hits for sure. And then it's got a really good special attack to hit back with too. And a decent speed tier for a mon like this. That's for sure. And the fact that it gets Synchronize and Trace, two very good abilities in my opinion. Synchronize lets you soak a status move up and then give it back to whoever gave it to you. And then Trace lets you trace abilities like being able to trace things like Regenerator, Speed Boost. What other good abilities are there? Like Volt Absorb, like Water Absorb, things like that. Like being able to absorb them to make them your own ability in front of mons that like with those abilities that would normally use moves that could be affected by them, like taking Jolteon's Volt Absorb or Seismitoad's Water Absorb is really cool. Like when they're probably going to be throwing out Volt Switches and Scolds and stuff like that. So, and then like you can get Natural Cure from things like Starmie, things like Shaman, um, and to soak the to soak the status that way is very cool as well. Um, but yeah, so I think this is going to be a very good addition to my team. Uh, Mega Gardevoir was like the kill leader last season, but I felt like Mega Beedrill was a better grab for me this season, and getting the regular Gardevoir is still very neat, and like it still has a lot of potential to put in work. Um, but yeah, moving on, my next wheel comes in however long it takes to get through all these picks, and what did I start picking up now? I think I got my grounded poison type and my ground type in. I think that was the one that was next. Let's check. No, okay. I got Return E from my last NCL season, my highest performing Mon in Aerodactyl. Just like another amazing speed tier, decent offensive stats on the physical side there, and decent HP, even if the defenses aren't the best to go with that HP. Like, it's still very good. Rockhead is not the best ability for it, as there's only the one move I think it learns that is affected by that, and that's Double Edge. You're not really gonna run Rockhead on Aerodactyl just for that. Pressure or Unnerve are both decent abilities. Pressure if you want to stop a stall team from stalling you too much, and then Unnerve if you're coming up against something that is likely to have a resist berry or something like that. Is really nice to have for those situations. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to keep up with Aerodactyl's performance from last season. Um, get some kills with this thing. It'll be really cool to see. I do like Aerodactyl, and I think it's great for this team. But next is my grounded poison type and my ground type. I believe that was next. It's got to be next. Yeah, it was Nidoking. So the more offensive variant of the Nidoking Nidoqueen pair, a bit more speed, a bit less bulk, a bit more offense, but it hits very very hard with that sheer force. Chucking a sheer force with a life orb, so you don't even take that life orb damage from things that are sheer force boosted, is pretty cool. Poison point, I guess, could be useful on a more defensive set, but um, rivalry not so useful, but it's there at least. And it's got decent HP and like middling defensive stats to go with that. So it has the potential to live a hit or two if needed, depending. But like it makes a really good scarfer, which is a good thing to have, because like there's definitely going to be um, scarfers on my opponent's team, because my speed tiers kind of require there to be at least one scarfer to outspeed things like the Aerodactyl and the Mega Beedrill. Um, so it's, yeah, having a scarfer of my own that I can bring out in my back pocket there is going to be very good, and it gets wider range of a wider range of coverage moves as well, which is really cool. And it can be a special attacker or a physical attacker. Like the stats on in that regards are not too far apart. Though it does have the more physically attacking, like higher physical attacking stat. The special attacking stat is not too bad, and like just getting that life orb sheer force definitely still makes it put in a ton of work. Next up, when it comes back to my wheel once again, 20 odd picks, I decided to go for what was next. It was my, I think, oh yeah, it was. I decided to pick up a couple more defensive mons. One of them being Gourgeist. Already have a grass type, but I needed a ghost type to like stop rapid spinners, so I can try and keep up my side of the hazards over having to defog all the time. and get rid of both sides, but um, Gourgeist is nice because like it's got the this is just the standard Gourgeist. Um, this is the standard Gourgeist stat spread, but there are multiple size Gourgeist, so you can get a faster one or a slower one. A faster one that's like less defensive, more offensive. A larger one that's more defensive, less offensive, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Got some nice abilities with Frisk. Oh well, got a nice ability with Frisk to be able to see what items your opponent is running, and Insomnia if you think something's gonna bring like Yawn or something like that. Insomnia could come in real clutch there. And it has a nice bunch of coverage moves and just like some good stab moves as well, which is really cool. And some nice utility with things like Will-O-Wisp and like Pain Split, I believe. It gets synthesis, so it's got a lot of recovery there, and it's a great Pokemon. Um, can't wait to use it. I've been wanting to get this for like 4 drafts in a row, but it kept getting taken before I could pick it up, so I was really happy to be able to pick it up this time. Next on this wheel, it was my Kamala, which is going to be my rapid spinner. My removal options at the moment are the Rotem Wash, the Katana, the Mega Beedrill, the Aerodactyl, and now Kamala. All of those other ones besides Kamala are defog, and things like Mega Beedrill and Katana aren't really going to run defog that often. Aerodactyl and Rotom Wash are more likely, with Rotom Wash there probably being the primary defogger, Kamala being my rapid spinner. Um, and I mean, Kamala's got a decent attack stat, and um, I mean, everything else is pretty average, but the attack stat is actually pretty decent. Uh, so there are definitely some sets that can take advantage of that, like the Sleep Talk um, Last Resort set, which is interesting. Chuck a band on that, and it just does insane damage. Um, but comatose means it's always asleep, and so that means it can't be poisoned, it can't be paralyzed, um, and it can't be toxic, which means it's a great status absorber as well, which is going to be really nice for things like um, Kyurem, Gourgeist, the Rotem Wash, Inferno, stuff like that. That like can't really switch. That like don't really want to be statused if you can help it. Having the Kamala there to be able to take those is pretty nice. But yeah, my last mon that I decided to pick up finishes off my Fighting Psychic Dark trio. And so it's going to be my Dark type, a tier 5 Dark type. There weren't many options. I was looking at Alolan Raticate, but Ian said he wanted that, and I gave it up to him because, like, this other one I feel like fit better on my team because of the abilities that it gets. And that's Mightyena. Like, very average stats all around. Like, nothing like super terrible, but nothing that stands out. But it does get the Intimidate, which can make it a bit more of a defensive mon. Like, its defensive stat isn't terrible, and with that HP, that's not terrible either. Like, including that Intimidate, it's going to be able to take most physical hits. Like, it's going to be able to take a few physical hits for sure. It could also be like a Scarf Sweeper with Moxie, which is pretty cool. It does get things like Sucker Punch and Pursuit, so it does have a little bit of priority there with the Sucker Punch, and it could be a good Pursuit trapper with the Pursuit as well. Like if you bring this in front of a physical Psychic type, like I don't know, a Medicham or something like that. Actually, not Medicham. What am I talking about? That's just fighting. Um, No, it's fighting psychic, but that dark's not going to be too good against that. I don't know. There's not too many physical psychic types, but I mean, you can bring it in front of a psychic type, and you're going to force it to take the 50-50 if it's going to be a sucker punch, if it's going to be a pursuit, and if you call that right, like you're going to be able to annihilate some psychic types for sure. And then with the Moxie, it could like definitely be a good sweeper um, in that situation. But yeah, that's my team so far. I think it looks pretty strong. I'm hoping to be able to put in some decent work with it this season. I at least want to go positive. Making playoffs would be ideal. I feel like I should be able to. Hopefully, it doesn't end up like last season where I don't make it because of how the divisions turn out. But I mean, if that does happen, what can you do? As long as I'm having fun, right? But yeah, making playoffs is ideal, but going positive in the season is the aim. So yeah, thank you for watching, and let me know what you think of the team if you'd like, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.